Selection Sunday was today, as you mentioned. Houston, Purdue, UConn, and North Carolina were all placed as the number one. Do you guys think that they got this right?
I do. Surprisingly, I actually do think they got this right. And I think all are really deserving of it. But I will say, any one of these teams can be beat. It just is a matter of when and how. But there's just, as of right now, when I looked at like the 2 line, I think the 1 seeds are correct.
I agree. There's some talk about maybe Tennessee over North Carolina, but I think what North Carolina did, beating Duke at the end of the ACC regular season, they won the conference regular season, ran into a buzzsaw in NC State, and they beat Tennessee. So I think they deserve that 1 seed over the Vols.
Yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. That's going to be starting on March 19th, a few days from today. But who's the underdog of this March Madness tournament? There's always one or maybe a few, but who do you guys have for this year?
Like when you say underdog, let me just clarify it. Are you talking about like a Cinderella story, or are you talking about a team that's not ranked as a 1 seed but could be like a 2, 3, or 4 that has a shot?
Second option.
Okay, so like a 2, 3, or 4 team that has a shot that's kind of gone overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go. It's kind of 2, and they're both in the Big 12, and they both played each other, and it's Baylor and Iowa State.
Yeah.
I think Iowa State is really good. I think Baylor is really good, and I think when you look at like the mold to win in March, you need good guard play. You got to be able to play defense, and you have to be able to take care of the basketball. Iowa State checks all of those boxes. Baylor's coach has been building that program for a couple years now, ever since they won the title, and they continue to kind of fit the bill for what has to be done in March. And the Big 12 this year has been really good. So I think the Big 12 kind of stands out in March, which is a scary thing because that conference has kind of gone overlooked all year.
Yeah, at the beginning of this, and even before the tournament started, I was kind of thinking the winner was going to come from the Big 12. UConn's obviously a very, very good team, but the Big 12 was top to bottom, in my opinion, the best conference in college basketball. A sleeper for me, Dino saw him up close and personal quite a bit. I like Creighton. Creighton is a 3 seed. Doug McDermott is a hell of a coach. He's been there for ups and downs. I just think their trio, they got a really, really good trio. I'm going to butcher probably some of these names. Shireman, Kalbrenner, and Alexander, they all score above 17 points a game. So if you get this team, if they're firing on all cylinders, yeah, they're a 3 seed, but nobody's really talking about Creighton, and they could actually make a legitimate run here.
No, Kalbrenner's really good. Obviously, like I've watched Creighton a bunch this year because they're in the Big East. But that team, it's weird. Creighton and Marquette are the only 2 teams from the Big East that made it outside of UConn. Both are really good. Mm-hmm. Both can beat anybody, but both can lose on any given night. So I like Marquette more than Creighton out of the Big East just because I think when you have a guard like Tyler Kolek with Marquette, who is just your prototypical white point guard that doesn't do anything wrong, I like him more than Creighton's guard play, even though I think Creighton is a really well-coached team. I think Creighton's route is probably better than Marquette's. But when you look at this year and you see that there's only 3 Big East teams, those 3 are the ones that stood out.
Now, every single March Madness, there's always one thing that happens. There's always a Cinderella run. Normally, people try to predict it beforehand, but nobody is ever that successful at it. But who do you guys think is going to go on a Cinderella run this year? We talked about the underdog. Now it's the Cinderella run. Last year was the FAU Owls. But who's going to do it in 2024? And actually, just to talk about the FAU Owls, I'm a big fan of them. Go to school there. But if they win, they're supposed to face UConn. So before you answer who you think is the Cinderella run, do you think that they even have a shot of going to 2.0 this year?
It's not going to be FAU. It was an awesome story last year. You could see at the beginning of the year they weren't the same team that although it's the same team, they still didn't have the same feeling that they did during that March run. They are horrible defensively, like horrible defensively. So if they're not scoring 90 plus, it's a problem. But my sleeper, and this is ironic because holy shit, did I bash their football team a lot this year?
Yes, Colorado.
It's Colorado. It's Colorado. They're 8-1 their last 9. Obviously they lost to Oregon in the Pac-12 championship, but they have 5 guys averaging double figures. And I will tell you, KJ Simpson can score with anybody in the country. And when, like I said, when you have guard play in March, you can beat anybody. The sleeper normally comes from one of the teams that plays in the first 4 on Wednesday. Colorado plays in the first 4. That's a serious advantage to anybody going into that opening weekend. Not only to mention they're really, really hot. So do I think that they can make the Final Four? I don't know that. But normally, team that plays in the first 4 ends up in the second weekend in the Sweet 16. I like the Buffs here, and I hope that makes up for a little bit of the bashing that I had on Dion and their football team this year.
Doing it for the views, Colorado. I got 3, and I'll be brief with them. I shouted them out at a couple podcasts ago. Brigham Young, BYU, they're a 6 seed. They shoot a ridiculous amount of threes, but if they're hot, there aren't too many offenses who are going to be able to beat them. I know that's very Jekyll and Hyde, but if those threes are falling, they're very, very dangerous. They played in the Big 12 and made some noise there. Another one, Nebraska, not your traditional powerhouse. They beat Purdue earlier this year. They ended the year on an 8-1 run. I love picking a sleeper or an underdog here that's hot going into the tournament. And Tominaga is an absolute stud. And then lastly, they just won the ACC. NC State, 11 seed. DJ Burns, if you haven't watched any NC State highlights, he's more of a defensive tackle than he is a basketball player. He's 6'9", 275 pounds. But if you watch NC State, the dude can absolutely ball. He's not just a big D tackle out there. The dude knows basketball. They're hot right now, and there's just something magical about NC State on an NCAA tournament run. Shout out Jimmy V.
Okay, yeah. So you're talking about the lefty tank.
The big boy, yeah.
Yeah, the big boy. Their guard, DJ Horn, transferred from Arizona State.
Also very good.
Put up 32 this year, put up 31, and in the title game versus North Carolina, put up 29. He can shoot it with the best of them. And when you beat Duke, Virginia, and North Carolina to get into the tournament, this could be the story of teams getting hot at the right time.
They were a 10 seed in the ACC. Just for context sake, we were talking about Pitt. Pitt was a 4 seed in the ACC, and NC State went on this run and made the tournament.